Hi, welcome to Wiser Pinoy TV. Again, this is James in Violon, and we will be continuing our lecture series under Criminal Law Book 1, and this is our part 4. So our part 4 discusses our part 4 will be comprising about the exempting circumstances under Article 12 of the Revised Penal Code. So we already discussed in part 3 the concepts under the justifying circumstances under Article 11. So we have to remember that exempting circumstances, the difference between the justifying and the exempting circumstances. Under justifying circumstances, both the criminal and the civil liabilities are eliminated, except in paragraph 4 of Article 11, because there the civil liability is not eliminated. However, the one who will be paying for the civil liability is the one who benefited the act of the ones who is defending the stranger. So we have to realize also that under Article 12 of the Revised Penal Code, what is only exempting here is the criminal liability, but not the civil liability, except only if the offended person will condone, no? Iko-condone niya yung civil liability, but that is usually seldom. Okay, under Article 12, the circumstances wherein it exempts the criminal liability. So what the law says here is that the following are exempt from criminal liability. 1, an imbecile or an insane person, unless the latter has acted during the lucid interval. Okay, what do you mean by lucid interval? It is the moment wherein an insane person goes back to his normal or sane personality or condition. A person who is under 9 years of age is also exempted from criminal liability. A person over 9 years of age and under 15, unless he has acted with discernment. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng discernment? He has knowledge, actual knowledge of what he or she is doing. So in which case, such minor shall be proceeded against in accordance with the provision of Article 80 of this code. So that pertains to the SWD or specific government agency that is responsible for the welfare of the child. So when such minor is adjudged to be criminally irresponsible, the court, in conformity with the provisions of the preceding paragraph of Article 12, shall commit him to the care of custody of the family, who shall be charged with his surveillance and education. Otherwise, he shall be committed to the care of some institution or person mentioned under Article 80. So another exempted in criminal liability is any person who, while performing a lawful act with due care, causes an injury by mere accident without fault or intention of causing it. He would use the defense of an extraordinary diligence, due diligence. Any person also who acts under the impulse of an uncontrollable fear or an equal or greater injury. Any person who fails to perform an act required by law when prevented by some lawful or insuperable cause. So let's try to answer what is an exempting circumstance. So there is a crime, but there is no criminal liability. So why there is no criminal liability? Because of lack of intelligence and lack of freedom. So we have to remember again, let's go back to Article 3 of the Revised Penal Code pertaining to what is a dolo. So there are 3 elements under dolo. We have the intelligence, we have the freedom, and we have the intent. So here, there is lack of intelligence and lack of freedom. So in other words, this is a situation wherein a criminal liability does not exist because of the lack of intelligence and lack of freedom. Now let's proceed to absolutory causes. So these absolutory causes are the core questions of the exam. What are they? Isa-isa natin sila, We have instigation. We have relationship of the offender with the victim under Article 332 of the Revised Penal Code. We have the exempt accessories under Article 20 of the Revised Penal Code. Who are they? We have mistake of fact. We have marriage between the offender and the offended party. So this is an example of a rape case wherein the rapist married the rape victim. So under the law, automatically ma-eliminate niya yung or mawawala niya yung criminal liability ng rapist because pinakasalan siya. We have also the valid pardon. We have the valid grounds for arbitrary detention. So we will try to discuss that one also and try to differentiate with illegal detention. Now we have arbitrary detention and illegal detention. What's the difference between the two? We have also the death under exceptional circumstances. And lastly, we have the spontaneous desistance during attempted stage of felony under Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code. Now, what is the difference between instigation and entrapment? Now, instigation gives rise to criminal liability of the instigator or the co-conspirator. Now, let's say, for example, in instigation, the criminal intent originated from the mind of the law enforcer or what we call the instigator. Okay? So, let's say, for example, a police officer, nirequest niya yung isang tambay na dakpin yung isang tao na tumatakbo. So, unfortunately, pag takbo niya, nahabol niya tapos nagkabugbugan sila, napatay nung inutusan ng pulis, yung tao. So, the person who was instigated to do something na unfortunately napatay niya yung isang tao, wala siyang kasalanan. Exempted siya kasi nga kasalanan yun ng nag-instigate yung police officer na nag-utos sa kanya. Now, while in entrapment, it originated from the mind of the lawbreaker. Now, alam naman natin yung entrapment, no? So, ang difference nila is instigation is an absolutory cause while entrapment is not. Ang main difference lang nila for purpose of the board exam is that the criminal intent originated from the law enforcer or the instigator. So, you check kanino ba nanggaling ang intent, no? Ang intent to commit a crime. Okay, so yun. So take note also that in instigation, the most crucial question is who will you charge for the crime committed? If you are the prosecutor, who will you charge? It is the principal. It is the principal by inducement. No, diba? Hindi naman tatanungin ng examiner na is there instigation? Of course, no, hindi yan. So napaka-giveaway or napaka-simple naman ng tanong. So is there a crime committed? So usually yan yung tanong. So if yes, who will be or who will you charge and why? So yan yung question. So, di ba sabi natin noon na ang criminal law the examiner will never suggest the right answer. So that is the golden rule in the criminal law. So, kayo lang nakakaalam niyan and we have to put that into your mind na dapat talaga na whatever suggested in the question, you have to analyze the elements and the circumstances if what is suggested is really correct. So, the answer for that is you would charge the police as the principal by inducement and the person who is instigated has no criminal liability because that is an exempting circumstance. Na-mention yan sa mga circumstances na exempted under the Revised Penal Code. So, iba naman yung entrapment, no? Ito yung normally nangyayari. Alam natin to kasi lagi natin ito nakikita sa TV na, let's say for example, yung police officer magpapanggap sila o mag-undercover sila na buyer ng drugs and then upon payment, doon lang huhulihin yung may kasalanan o yung pusher. So, yan yung example ng entrapment. Now, let's proceed to the relationship between the offender and the victim under Article 332 of the Revised Penal Code. Now, under the Article 332, persons exempt from criminal liability. So there will be no criminal liability, but only civil liability shall result from the commission of the crime of theft, swindling, or malicious mischief committed or caused mutually by following persons. Like, for example, spouses, ascendants, and descendants, or relatives by affinity in same line. So I hope you already understand what is the concept of ascendants and descendants. Now, you also put into your mind that the widowed spouse with respect to the property which belonged to the deceased spouse before the same shall have passed into possession of another, and brothers and sisters and brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law if living together. The exemption established by this article shall not be applicable to strangers participating in the commission of the crime. So let's say for example, my stranger or the family member who participated in the crime, so only the family members are exempted under Article 332 of the Revised Penal Code, while the stranger will face the specific felony under the criminal law or the Revised Penal Code. Okay. So let's proceed now to the exempt accessories under Article 20 of the Revised Penal Code and mistake of fact. Okay. So yung mistake of fact, we already discussed that one in our previous video. So you just check na lang and review kasi para hindi na tayo paulit-ulit. Okay? So, under Article 266-C, the effect of pardon, what will be the effect of the pardon? The subsequent valid marriage between the offended parties shall extinguish the criminal action or the penalty imposed. Ito yung mention ko kanina na yung rape victim, once pinakasalan siya ng rapist, automatically the criminal liability will be vanished or mawawala yung criminal liability niya. Okay. Now, what is valid pardon under Article 23 of the Revised Penal Code? So, this is a constitutional question. Yung pardon or amnesty, these are absolutary cause. So, ano bang difference ng pardon with amnesty? Yung pardon is ina-apply siya sa individual who committed a criminal offense. Okay? And this is under the executive clemency or prerogative ito ng president to grant a specific person who was previously convicted of a criminal offense. Once the pardon will be granted to the specific person, automatically all criminal liability mawawala. Okay? While pag sinabi natin amnesty, it is applicable to a specific group of people or particularly those people who committed a political offense like rebelde. Okay? And this one, while it is the president who will grant this one, but it has to be approved by the Congress. You know, there is a concurrence of the Congress under amnesty. Okay. So, let's talk about naman arbitrary detention and of course illegal detention. Now, ang arbitrary detention can only be committed by a public official. Okay? Now, let's say a police officer in-arrest kanya and then detain kanya more than 24 hours. Let's say 24 hours. Kasi under the Revised Penal Code, meron man yung mga different time frame kung ilang oras ka lang pwede i-detain. Now, let's say for example, if light felony, kung yung punishment mo is mababa lang katamtaman tapos yung pinakamataas. So, usually 12 hours, 16 hours, and then 24 hours. Depende yan sa bigat ng kaso mo. Now, if walang mapafile ng kaso against sa'yo, the police officer should set you free. Dapat i-release ka. Now, if hindi ka i-release ng police after a specific, let's say, 24 hours, nag-30 hours na hindi ka pa ni-release, wala pa din nag-file sa'yo ng complaint, then automatically, pwede kang mag-file ng illegal detention to a specific police officer na hindi nag-release sa'yo, na siyang in charge noon. Another example niyan is, a police officer, kinidnap ka, inabduct ka, and then kinulong ka sa isang bodega. So that's an example of arbitrary detention kasi yung offender is a public official. Now, illegal detention on the other hand can only be committed by a private individual. Now, let's say for example, a janitor, may nakagusto sa iyo ng janitor kasi maganda ka, and then kinulong ka sa CR for how many hours? That's an example of an illegal detention. Question, ang police officer ba, can we file illegal detention against a police officer? Yes, pwede. If the police officer acted in his private capacity. Let's say, for example, hindi niya duty, rest day ni police officer or holiday nun at walang trabaho si police officer, tapos kinulong ka niya, then illegal detention yun because the police officer during that time acted in his private capacity as a person. Okay? So I hope it's clear sa inyo kasi that's very important na ma-distinguish natin yan. Now, when we talk about death under exceptional circumstances, under Article 247 of the Revised Penal Code, here, the law requires that the killing must be done immediately after the discovery of the sexual intercourse between the paramour and the spouse. Why? Because once there is a sufficient lapse of time, that is no longer death under exceptional circumstances. So when the offender has the sufficient time to reflect on his act, that cannot be considered death under exceptional circumstances. Ano ang remedy natin dyan? When you cannot invoke the defense of death under exceptional circumstance, your remedy is under the mitigating circumstance. Yung immediate vindication of a grave offense committed against your honor. So this is an example also of yung ginagahasa ka and all. Tapos, pagkatapos mong gasain for how many hours, let's say minutes, 30 minutes, parang natulala ka, then na-realize mo bigla na na-rape ka. So what you did is, pinatay mo yung rapist mo. So here, acted in vindication ka na. So this can never be fall under death under exceptional circumstance. Okay, so that's very important to take note. Now, you have also to consider the spontaneous desistance during attempted stage. So, diba, yung ano natin, attempted, frustrated, at saka consummated, sa attempted stage, it can only be considered attempted if nag-desist siya, hindi natuloy yung plano niya, not because of his own personal spontaneous desistance, but it's because of the external factor. Let's say, for example, babarilin ko si A, gustong-gusto kong barilin, pero may pusa na biglang pumunta sa akin, so hindi ko natuloy. That's an example of an attempted. Kasi the intention did not cease. Nandoon pa rin yung intention mo. Pero pag sinabing babarilin ko na si A, pero best friend ko pala si A, I reminisced our beautiful memories. So, hindi ko siya tinuluyan. So, walang walang attempted stage na nangyari dyan. Because ang pag-stop ko or ang pag-desist ko to commit the felony is based on my personal spontaneous desistance. Okay? So, exempted yan. Walang kaso dyan. Okay. So, here, an imbecile or an insane is entitled to be exempted unless the latter acted during lucid interval. So, ang pinaka number one reason why we put this here because of the term lucid interval. Okay, if you do the killing during lucid interval, ibig sabihin, di ka na exempted sa criminal liability because when we speak of lucid interval, it means meron kang discernment or knowledge and freedom of the act that you have committed. Okay, so how to determine if there is lucid interval? So that is the most challenging part there. It is from the facts of the case you can see, no? So facts yan, that there is discernment what is right and what is wrong. Article 12 of the revised penal code is a defense. So take note of that. There is a crime but there is no criminal. Yung catch dyan ay yung acting during lucid interval, and dyan nagdidwell normally yung question natin sa board exam as far as Article 12 paragraph 1 is concerned. Okay? So, what are the matters to consider? Now, let's say for example, kung nung baliw pa yung insanity period before the commission of the crime, the legal effect for that is not exempted from criminal liability. Now, during the commission of the crime, that would be the time na exempted from criminal liability. Now, after the commission of the crime, it's no longer exempted. But proceeding will be suspended because insanity must be at the time of the commission of the offense unless it is proven to subsist until commission. So, yan yung pinaka-ano dyan. So here, the insanity after the commission of the crime, yan yung ginawa ng client, yan yung ginagawa ng isang kaso ng desisyon ng Supreme Court. No? Insanity daw after killing the victim. No? So, I have a professor wherein he encountered this kind of client, no? Sabi niya, insanity daw yung nangyari after killing the victim, no, in one of the cities here in Mindanao, and when he was still the PAW, so yan yung checklist niya sa insanity, it is not an automatic since it is a defense. Okay? So, talagang, you have to remember that when it is used as a defense, pafilan ka talaga ng kaso. Kasi itong justifying and exempting, hindi ibig sabihin na wala itong mga criminal liabilities, hindi ka na pafilan kasi these are forms of defense naman. Okay. So, you have to take note also that under Republic Act 9344, has been a subject of a very, very long controversy. Sa law na ito, may tinatawag tayong absolute criminal irresponsibility and conditional criminal responsibility. Now, yung pag sinabi natin absolute criminal irresponsibility, we are referring to 15 years old and below. So, regardless of the superior mental superiority of the minor, as long as he is 15 years of age and below, there is no criminal liability in court. So, ito yung bagong problem natin ngayon kasi alam na ng mga sindikato at yung masasamang elemento na yung mga bata wala silang criminal liability. So, ginagamit nila to commit the felonies and the crimes. Pagnanakaw, mga ganyan, yung mga juvenile o yung mga bata. So, of course, pag bata yan, under our law, wala talagang criminal liability yan. Okay. Now, when we speak of conditional criminal irresponsibility, we are referring to 15 years and 1 day and above, but below 18 years old. no? So, siya yung tinatawag natin na child or children in conflict with the law or CICL. So, pag naging police na kayo in the near future, no? So, you will be dealing with ICLC. So, yan yun. Now, the final question or topic na ating anuhin dito is, how do we determine discernment? So, manner of committing the crime and conduct of the offender lang ang babasgan natin. Okay? So, this video is quite short kasi alam ko na marami sa inyo na ayaw din na matataas ang video. So, I plan to make this short talaga para aabangan naman yung part 5 which we will discuss about the mitigating circumstances under Article 13 of the Revised Penal Code. So thank you very much, and do not forget to subscribe on this channel, Wiser Pinoy TV, and of course do not forget to like and click the bell button if you are not yet a subscriber to this channel, so that you will be notified kung may mga bagong videos na ina-upload sa channel na ito. Thank you very much. God bless, and stay at home para safe tayo sa COVID.